the practice of sacred silliness, holy humor, absolute uplifting absurdity is at the heart of what we're engaging in today. And in full awareness that it's the month of Adar and we're called upon to lift rejoicing, and we just might not feel like it. And we might actually be feeling the exact opposite. And I'm officiating at a funeral today. It seems to happen consistently that there's death or illness around Purim. And some of our sages, particularly the Hasidic masters, speak very strongly about the urgency of making ourselves joyous. And they talk about it not only on Purim or in relationship to the month of Adar, but as a spiritual practice always. And so I would like us to play with that a little bit.
How are we supposed to do that if I don't feel happy and I feel like I'm struggling?
Well, hockey player, let's start by singing Mishe'nichnas Adar.
Okay, I suppose that's all right.
So here are the words when Adar enters. We increase rejoicing, la 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 la. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mishe, 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 Mishe'nichnas Adar. Mishe, 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 Mishe'nichnas Adar. Mishe'nichnas Adar, marbim, marbim, בשמחה. Mishe'nichnas Adar, marbim, marbim, בשמחה. Underwater. Dance it. Mishe, 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 Mishe'nichnas Adar. Mishe, 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 Mishe'nichnas Adar. Mishe'nichnas Adar, marbim, marbim, בשמחה. Mishe'nichnas Adar, marbim, marbim, בשמחה. Ah, 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 ah. Make a funny face. Oh, those are some good ones. Make another one. Two whales are sitting at a bar, and one says, and the other one says, "Oh, George, you're drunk again." Dear ones, how do we lift joy? How do we increase joy when we are up against struggle and challenge and a global pandemic and whatever personal struggles have always been there or continue to be challenging? And it's winter and it's snowy and it's cold and how do we lift joy when being human is just hard anyway? Deliberately, consciously. Let's look at what Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liyadi says in the Tanya, a Hasidic master in his central work. So, he says, so one says something humorous. to open one's consciousness and to cause one to rejoice in God, Torah, and spiritual practice, for one must be joyous. This is as Rabbi did with his students. He would say something humorous to them, and then scholars would be amused. Excuse me. What does that mean, to be humorous as a pathway to open our consciousness? Exactly half a year ago, pretty much, we were in Yom Kippur. And the seriousness, the solemnity of seeking to open our consciousness through fasting and prayer and yearning and letting our hearts be broken and making our bodies uncomfortable and transcending our bodies to open consciousness. And here we are moving toward Purim, Yom HaKippurim, a day that is like Purim, we say, is Yom Kippur. We're opening our consciousness through the exact inverse, feasting, drinking, making ourselves spiced, as our sages teach, so that we can't tell the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. That is traditionally understood as as getting drunk, so that our categories are blurred. But really, it's about flipping our consciousness. So Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liyadi says, get yourself laughing, crack yourself up in order to crack your consciousness open, to gain wider access to the divine, to Torah's insights, to spiritual practice. Reb Nachman of Bratslav wrote in Likutei Halakhot, and this is, he wrote a lot about the dangers of depression. It's understood by scholars that he grappled very deeply with deep sadness. So he's not coming at this as a removed theoretical set of instructions, but coming very deeply from his own grappling. He writes, our rabbis of blessed memory warn in many places strongly that humans need to habituate themselves to always be in joy. Always. Liot בשמחה tamid. And it is brought in Reb Nachman's holy words that it is impossible to be in joy except by words of silliness specifically. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liyadi in the previous section was talking about, opening one's consciousness with humor to be connected to the divine and Torah. Reb Nachman is going right toward the silliness. Speaking of which, I'm going to continue to read this passage while eating crackers. So, the word of silliness. To make yourself a fool. To bring yourself to a state of joy. A state of joy through words of silliness. Because it is human nature to be drawn to sadness. Great sadness. Because the human condition is full of suffering and sorrow. I'm going to say that again. Suffering and sorrow, as is known to every single person. Therefore, we must force oneself with all their strength to be happy. The essence of happiness can only be achieved by way of utter silliness. Utter silliness. As I heard from the mouth of a blessed memory,
She said these words. It appears that it was no longer possible to be happy except through silliness.
Right there is the sorrow. Right here is the suffering. How do we make our hearts glad and lifted with silliness? And it's interesting how often, now I'm getting serious again, how often people think that being spiritual is supposed to be heavy, stern, and how interesting that Purim, in so many people's minds, is a holiday for children. Quite the opposite. This is, I think, perhaps Judaism's deepest teaching. Of course, I say that about every teaching, but two muffins are in the oven, and one turns to the other and says, "Oh, it's really hot in here." And the other muffin goes, "Ah, a talking muffin!" So let's sing again. And this time we're going to sing Misha, 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 Misha. And I encourage you to do all kinds of things that crack you up, that are ridiculous, that are silly. You won't actually be seen on the screen, just me. So I might need to do some quite ridiculous things, but I'll be inspired by the rest of you. And I'm going to put the words in the chat so we could actually continue to see each other. Da, 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 where did it go? Misha, Misha, Misha. Misha, Misha, Misha. Misha, Misha, Misha. Misha, Misha, Misha. Putting it in the chat. There it is. We might start in a Muppet voice. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Misha, 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 Mishe'nichnas Adar. Misha, 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 Mishe'nichnas Adar. Mishe'nichnas Adar, marbim, marbim, בשמחה. משנכנס אדר מרבין מרבין בשמחה. היי!
מישה 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 נכנס אדר. מישה 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 נכנס אדר. מישה נכנס אדר מרבין מרבין בשמחה. משנכנס אדר מרבין מרבין בשמחה. Misha, 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 Mishe'nichnas Adar. Misha, 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 Mishe'nichnas Adar. Mishe'nichnas Adar marbim, marbim בשמחה. משנכנס אדר מרבין מרבין בשמחה. היי! מישה 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 משנכנס אדר. היי! מישה 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 משנכנס אדר. משנכנס אדר מרבין מרבין בשמחה. משנכנס אדר מרבין מרבין בשמחה. Woo! Woo! Take a moment to close your eyes and drop in to the sensations in your body, to the state of your heart. To open here to divine presence.
Let the corners of your lips curl just upwards slightly. The tickle of a smile. Let a thought bubble up that tickles the underside of your heart. Silly, playful, ridiculous. Let it ripple through your body and through your consciousness. Let another silly thought bubble up, tickle up your nose. Let it ripple through you. We have within us the incredible capacity to lift out of darkness. It takes discipline. This is a disciplined practice of humor, of joy, of making ourselves fools, of playing in the realm of silliness, even when we don't feel like it. To tickle and lift and imagine God giggling with us, through us. May we be strengthened with extra flatulent power, with goofiness, with taking ourselves more lightly, with choosing to meet difficulty, conflict, with a little impishness, and see where that might take us, where that might open new pathways, how we might discover the divine in new ways right there. Ken yehi ratzon. Amen. Oh man. Woman. Maybe we'll change the word amen to woman. I don't know. Okay, my dear ones. Feel free to unmute and make a weird noise. Animal sounds all at once together. 1, 2, 3.